Dr. Steelhammer,
Iron Fist and Steelhammer.
Welcome to another episode of Dr. Steelhammer Podcast, episode 6. And co-host Bad Boy Billy, and as always, Dr. Steelhammer is here with us tonight again.
How's it going, everybody? Dr. Steelhammer.
And tonight we're just going to go through some questions. I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Steelhammer, just kind of get some thoughts from him and how he's thinking about some certain agendas or subject matter. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say about these. And so let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first question is, what are your thoughts on the side effects of the COVID vaccine regarding the known side effect called myocarditis? As we have had, the young athletes have been, dropping like flies here and there during games or practice. I don't know if you heard about Bronny James. He's the son of LeBron James. And he recently had an episode where he had a cardiac arrest, I believe, during practice when he was playing for. I don't recall what college he plays for, but he recently had cardiac arrest during a practice. And if you don't know what myocarditis is, it's inflammation that develops on the muscle part or layer of the heart. So I wanted to get your feedback on not only the side effects of the COVID vaccine, but how the third shot, the booster, has been affecting people with the blood clots.
Yeah, that's a really well-spoken question and really, really deep. And it's a really tough subject because, we were essentially lied to about the efficacy of this vaccine. And I really think it was just wrong from the get-go, from the genesis of it. You knew something was off. I knew something was off when they first rolled out with them. And most of the time when they get those stuff that's experimental, they say that, it's only for emergency use only. And by emergency use only, that means somebody with predisposed conditions or somebody of elderly age that has respiratory issues. That's what the emergency use is for. It's what they should have been using it for. But I've had friends deep within the government. I still have a friend that works in the government. And one of my friends, somebody I knew, used to work in the Pentagon. And he told me it was healthy to question my own government, who I'm working for. And they told me about, some stuff that was going to happen and how it was going to happen and what they were doing before, like the Edward Snowden stuff dropped. They were kind of suspicious of this kind of stuff too. And I really feel like when that stuff is emergency use, can you imagine the amount of tax dollars we waste on? Look at the amount of tax dollars Biden has wasted on Ukraine, $100 billion. And the person I knew in the Pentagon who worked there, he's like, I can't tell you how much money like places like FEMA waste on just jet rides, just joyriding with our money. So all that stuff that FEMA was doing to us is emergency use only. I knew that it was like basically just hoodwinking us, making tons of money off of us. And really that's what it was with Fauci. And I just really think for some reason conservatives more and people who question the government could see through the efficacy of what they were doing, and we didn't trust them. And I had somebody say that, myocarditis is really people who also get COVID get myocarditis. And I was like, okay, that's true, but how many people who are healthy are getting myocarditis compared to the people who are taking the vaccine, and also who are completely normal, healthy individuals, like teenagers or 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds or 40-year-olds, and then getting irreversible symptoms of paralyzation, myocarditis, dying, and all the other slew of horrible things that they're trying to cover up in the media. I remember when this whole vaccine thing came out, I subscribed to this channel called Zay Speaks Truth. Z-A-Y, Z as in zebra, A as in alpha, Y as in yo. Zay Speaks Truth would upload like quick 1-minute videos of people in the hospital who were like completely healthy, and these are like college kids, you know, like or teenagers who are like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm in the hospital and after I took the vaccine and I'm having like really irreversible bad problems. And this guy was uploading stuff every week, you know, hundreds of people posting this stuff. And you know, I don't know how long they can hide this for, and how many other institutions and other medical places can go about hiding this. And it's funny how just like one day you didn't hear about pushing vaccines anymore or COVID. It just kind of dusted out in like the blink of an eye. And that's when you know the news is running a psyop. When, like, this is kind of off topic, but you notice how, like, not as much as about 4 months ago that CNN or somebody won't be talking about Ukraine as much. Well, it's because the narrative isn't going well for them. And so instead of talking about the truth, exposing the truth to people, what they do is they just stop covering the story. And that's exactly what happened with COVID. They try to let it die out so people just kind of forget about it. And that's what they do to us. They just move us from one fear-based tactic event to the next. And they try to desensitize you because they're trying to make you forget about what just happened, especially with all these school shootings and stuff. They're one after the next, and they make you forget about it. But yeah, I don't really, that's why I didn't take the vaccine. I knew they were lying about it. And I remember, I'll try to find it for the next episode, but there's this doctor who was an American doctor, and he left for Germany. And this was right around before the vaccines were starting to roll out. And he's like, I have completely lost faith in the institutions, academia, and the medical field in USA. I don't even know if I'll ever return. But he started to break down what the mRNA vaccine was and what it was going into. And he was like, I still can't believe that they're doing this to people, how they can do this to their own citizens. And it was like an hour-long interview. I'll try to send it to you. But it was really deep. And when I watched that interview, I was like, there's no way I'm taking this vaccine. It's just not going to happen. So I just, yeah.
Do you recall when the CDC, the WHO, they started to backtrack on some of these things? Like, especially the CDC, when they said that the vaccine did this and that and the other, they started to backtrack on all those things, especially with the booster.
Yeah.
When the booster came out, as you well know, people started getting blood clots. So not only athletes, but movie stars started, people in Hollywood started dying from blood clots and whatnot. So I think the CDC has had to come and say, backtrack a lot of this so that they're not being held accountable for certain things that they've already said previously. They backtrack and say, well, it caused this in a certain amount of people, and it was, we didn't realize it, blah, 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 things like that. So that's what bothers me the most is the CDC and the WHO have had to finally come and, kind of backtrack what they've previously said. And it doesn't match up to things that they'd said when all these vaccines came out in the first place.
Yeah, you're right, man. Scary stuff. Like, it got so bad that they had to reverse what they were saying. And I knew when I started researching just the tip of the iceberg, where it said you're not allowed to sue the vaccine companies if there's a side effect. Once that was stated, I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to be taking this vaccine. Like, that, there's no way. Like, it's just, the writing is on the wall. Once I read that and saw that doctor's interview, I was like, I can't do that. I don't care if I lose my job. Like, I'm not going to do this. Right. And people like Ice Cube, who I really admire, he turned down $9 million, and now pretty much the entire Hollywood, some of his former friends, turned their back on him. He doesn't get invited.
I heard about that.
Yeah, really intense.
He had an interview with Tucker Carlson recently, and he stated, I had to back out of a movie because I wasn't about to take the vaccine, and so they weren't going to go forward with the movie. So
Amazing. That's pretty admirable of what he has some principles, and he. Not many people in Hollywood would do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's like real talk, and yeah. And when you have people like that standing up, you know something is off with our society. You know. Yeah. No, you said it best. The WHO and the CDC are backtracking now, and it's like we were saying this, labeled as conspiracy theorists two years ago, but we were cast aside as kooks and conspiracy theorists when we were trying to tell people this, and now look at it.
It seems like what becomes conspiracy later on becomes truth. So that's
exactly,
bro.
bro.
Funny how that works.
Funny how that works.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that answer to that question, or did you want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, no. It's a tough subject. I try to talk to my family about it, and most of the time I just get.
They gave you shit for it?
Yeah, I get brick walls, and but oddly enough, one family member and I, who don't agree on much, this is the only time, and pretty much some of the few times in the last 10 years or more, we've ever agreed on anything, and we both agreed on the vaccine. We wanted nothing to do with it. And it's very rare for us to have a common shared belief about stuff in the current climate of politics. And yeah, thankfully we both agreed on it, and we're like, we knew that the companies were just selling us out. It was all for, you know, profiteering off of basically our health, which is pretty evil when you look at it. I mean, there's some pretty evil stuff our government does, like, you know, unjust wars like invading Iraq, which had nothing to do with, you know, Afghanistan and Al Qaeda. We killed 1 million citizens. I'd say that's probably the most evil thing we've done, killing a million innocent civilians. But I'd say the COVID vaccine, doing this to your own people, I mean, it's pretty evil. And what's even more evil about it is that you're doing it to kids. Like that's as bad as it gets. Like,
yeah,
you know, that's where I draw the line. Like, do it to adults, okay, profiteering, that's pretty bad. But you're messing with a new generation of little kids. Like, that's fucking evil, man. You know?
I'm also wondering if this was a plan to kind of, you know, slow down the population, because I also feel like, you know, all the women out there, and this is not a bash on women, but you know, the women that got the vaccine, their periods started being off and being really weird. Like they'd have longer periods, or they would have periods that were just not happening when they should.
Wow. I heard about that. Is that true?
I'm thinking that might have been part of that. Like the vaccines contributed to that.
I think
whether or not that's true or factual, I'm not real sure, but I kind of read somewhere where women's periods are kind of being irregular at best. Yeah, I think the first two were causing some of that, but I'm not sure about the booster. But I was also thinking that maybe this was an attempt for population control.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right, dude. I had my other friends here over in this state, we kind of concurred on that, how it's not an immediate kind of depopulation, but in the long run, what they're doing is sterilizing a lot of the white part of the Western Europe and America, because I think whoever's running the show, pushing this stuff on us, like, you know, the Federal Reserve, you know, the banking system, the vaccines, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I think they work in conjunction, but I think what they're doing is they know China has a population problem. They know India has a population problem, and they're looking at that and they're like, what can we do preemptively as a contingency to slow the growth of that over here? Because we're having a boom with, you know, immigrants and stuff. But at the same time, they're like, well, we have all these conservatives who are like right-wing extremists. How do we take care of that? Well, let's scare the shit out of them with a virus, a killing virus. And they scared the shit out of so many people that even like boomers who were Vietnam vets laid down and took the vaccine. And they really like ramped it up with like the fear mongering and stuff. And which I admit, like people who are older, those are the people that did need the vaccines. And you know, I was not opposed to that. Like people with pre-existing conditions and elderly.
Right.
I totally 100% agree. Those people need vaccines right away, like ASAP. So, but at the same time they did that, they're also like taking out different generations at the same time. They're not only like cucking white people and conservatives.
Yeah.
They're simultaneously doing that and ruining our youth, our white American youth. They're taking out the boomers too. They're taking out all like in the Northeast and West Coast, the 20s and 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds, because all the liberals, they're 100% taking the vaccine. The only people who are not really taking the vaccines were like the independents, the Republicans, and people who are just wary of the government in general. And but most of the country is vaxxed. So I think their goal is to basically docile the planet by making a new world order. And they know that the most difficult people to get under control are 100% right-wing Americans with lots and lots of guns. I'd say we're probably the hardest, and if we're not the hardest, the next hardest to get under control are either rogue nations like North Korea and Al-Qaeda, but outside of that, an organized religious group, the hardest to control are the Muslims, because the Muslims still create Sharia law. They still follow that. So like, there's literally no crime over in Saudi Arabia. Like if you do something, they'll literally still to this day chop your hands off. So those are the hardest people to get under control. I think that's like their last goal, is to conquer the Muslim population. But right now we're like stage 2 or stage 3 of like a 5-stage plan. And they knew they needed to get us under control. That's why they rigged the elections. That's why they are doing these vaccines now that came up. It's all like planned out. I feel like it's just lining up perfectly with everything. And like, I just feel like that's their ultimate goal, is to cuck us, get the white population under control, sterilize the women so they don't give birth as much to white kids. It sounds like some grand conspiracy, but when you really look at the stuff lining up, the way unjust wars work, the way the banking system works, the way vaccines just came out of nowhere, like they had them ready or something, and like supposedly this virus came from bats, and everybody was saying there's no way it came from a Chinese lab, and then you would call it conspiracy theorists. It was like blatantly obvious stuff that was obvious, and then when you said it, you were chastised and you were exiled from, lost your job if you didn't take a vaccine. So it's just one after the next. It's like becoming obvious now. That's what they're trying to do to us. They're trying to corral the conservatives into a little gate and get rid of all of us, because they know that there's too many of us, and it's a fact that there are too many of us, because the elections were rigged. The boycotts happening now are obvious, that to see how much money they're losing from people just getting fed up, and it's real. The silent majority is real, and they're terrified of us. So what can they do? They can't go door to door taking our guns away, because there's more guns in this country than there are people. So what can they do to scare us? Oh, take this vaccine, and in 20 years you won't be able to give birth. You know, I think that's the only way they can get around that. So
yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said in regards to all that. It's just it's a crazy country we live in, as well as the world, because I think if we're the only country that's, giving out the vaccine, and then we're giving it to other countries, it affects the other countries as well in the whole world. So that does make a lot of sense, where it can be a form of control.
You're absolutely right. That's the term, a form of control. And like, they needed to look at Western Europe. Their form of control wasn't the vaccines first, it was immigration. Like, if you look at what's happening with the Muslim influx over there for at least 8 years now, maybe longer, probably longer. that was their form of control to, because they knew that those people were not going to assimilate with Western European values. That's why you saw all those girls getting raped in like Sweden and stuff, and it's getting out of control in Ireland now, everywhere. That's their form of control first. That was supposed to be done to us if Clinton got into office. Her idea was to bring all the Somalians over, all the people from Yemen, from Syria, everywhere. They were going to pack them in here. But, you know, Trump put a wrench in that sprocket. So they're like, all right, well, let's go to phase B, plan B or plan C. Let's ramp this up to, you know, a COVID vaccine. So that's our form of control.
Yeah.
And now it happened also to Western Europe after their first stage of control, which is immigration.
So my next question involves like what's going on with the Biden family and Hunter's dealings. So we know based on a lot of evidence that's come forward. I don't know if you've taken a look at that website that's public. That shows a lot of his texts and emails, pictures of him with 2 hookers in a hotel doing cocaine. But based on the evidence that Biden lied about having involvement or didn't know about his son's business dealings, recently Speaker McCarthy has announced Biden's impeachment, or that he's going to make sure that he is impeached. Do you believe Biden is guilty of the tax fraud as well as illegal business with other countries and has put the U.S. at risk for potential or current international security breaches? If so, what do you think that those security risks are, and do you think Ukraine is a prime target or suspect of his dealings?
That's a really good question, man. Yeah, wow, that's a lot of factual presented light being shone on the dark side of what this administration is. And we all know that Hunter Biden is without a doubt like just a train wreck of disaster. I think he was screwing something like his relative's like daughter or something. There's photos of it that leaked on the internet. And yeah, he's 100%. He knew his son had, you know, really no business skills and was getting involved with Ukraine. He had slush funds accounts tied to, you know, probably offshore accounts and stuff that's getting diluted. The money they send over there to Ukraine, and it's hard to track and stuff. And he 100% knew his son was neck deep in that stuff. And I'm sure actually old Joey is too. And, you know, the money that even before this war broke out, Ukraine was known as one of the most corrupt countries in the world, at least definitely the most corrupt in Eastern Europe. You know, just the money we're sending over there is just going into La La Land. It's going into the pockets of a lot of politicians, and who knows, we can't even oversight, you know, the fiscal deficits of our military, where our stuff is going, let alone Ukraine. So like tons of that money, of our hard-earned tax money, is going over there. It's just being wasted, and I really think that we're not going to hear about it for a long time, about where it really went, and this whole debacle disaster of a war, which we should have no business being over there. And I think the Bidens are one of the most corrupt. I'd have to say the Clintons, definitely. I mean, all politicians are corrupt, but when you want to talk about corruption, definitely Clintons. And the Bidens are kind of getting caught up in it now, and you can see it kind of seeping out at the seams. And I don't know how long. I mean, I know the DOJ is corrupt now. The FBI is covering up for them. I mean, I think there's websites that are like dedicated to Hunter Biden's laptop now. It's like all over the internet. How long can you keep this a secret for, right?
Yeah, I'm not real sure, because like recently Hunter Biden went to court and he was told by the judge that the plea deal is off. There's no plea deal. You need to tell us how you're going to plea.
Nice. Yeah.
And so he pleaded not guilty, and of course, there's probably a lot of evidence that proves that he is guilty of what he's done. The other side of that is what money trail is going to go to his dad, Joe, and determine whether Joe's going to get in big trouble as well, because he took some sort of cut based on the texts and messages that went back and forth in emails based off his business dealings with other countries, especially China and Ukraine, where he's withheld funds to Ukraine unless they were going to send him money first.
I remember that, right?
Yeah, so there's that meme that's been going around where it shows the money trail. Like, they withheld money to Ukraine waiting for someone to send them money. And they finally sent the Biden family money, so then they sent aid money to Ukraine for the war. But I'm not totally convinced that Ukraine is a country we should be supporting. I think we should be supporting Putin and the Russians, to be honest. I think this is just a way of Biden supporting Ukraine so that the president of Ukraine doesn't spill the beans on something that Joe's done, or Hunter for that matter. There's no telling what's been going on. And then recently, a week or so ago, you have it's been leaked that there was cocaine found at the White House. Like, who leaves? How does that happen? Like, the White House should be a very secure place. How does cocaine suddenly show up in a room in the White House? And then the press for the White House started to tell, oh, well, it was in a high traffic area, or they found it in some other room. They kept telling different stories of where they found it in the White House. So I'm not exactly sure I believe anything they're going to tell me where they found it or how they found it. To be honest, I believe that the Secret Service found it and it came from Hunter, but now they're saying that Hunter was not even there that weekend, that it wasn't even, so that kind of, they're trying to say that rules out that it was his. But at the same time, I think the Secret Service is just trying to leak shit out so that they look bad, because I think the Secret Service has a hard time trying to keep the Biden family under wraps from all the crap that they're doing. And then I think they find it hard. But I wouldn't be surprised if one of the Secret Service guys leaked out the fact that cocaine was left in the White House. But I mean, that's the first time that something like that has really happened at the White House, where like a substance, it could have been something else. Maybe it wasn't cocaine, maybe it was anthrax or some shit. I don't know. But
right.
It could have been a multiple of things. It could have been baking soda for all you know, or flour, or what, I don't know. But apparently they figured out it was cocaine. But I don't know. I just think that's really telling of the Biden family, how stupidly, ridiculously clown show they are to the world. It just shows how idiotic that whole administration is, as well as the family. And I hope that come 2024, the people see that after another year of this guy and realize, man, we got to get this, this piece of crap out of there, because he's not really helping us at all, and he's not making our country any better, that's for sure.
You said it, brother. This corpse of a president. Yeah, he's really just a puppet, and we can see that he's being, carefully, stringed from probably Obama from behind the curtain. It's just, I don't know how it could get any worse. I mean, the family, it's starting to be so corrupt that it's laughable. Yeah, like, we all know where the cocaine came from. It's obvious. Yeah. Everybody knows Hunter Biden's a cokehead, and but no matter like what, you never really see the media cover stuff, because the media is run by the left and all these, whomever is running the dark forces behind the curtain.
It's crazy.
They all work together in conjunction with each other to basically manipulate the masses with
Oh
psyops.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
man.
you've heard about that movie that came out, The Sound of Freedom? I think it's
Yeah.
one that Mel Gibson's been trying to promote. I don't know if he was a producer, but he's definitely trying to promote it. It's done by Angel Studios, which is the one that did the Chosen series. I don't know if you've watched the Chosen series.
I have
My
not.
wife watches it a lot. She likes it. She says it's really good. It's about the disciples of Jesus. But this particular movie, The Sound of Freedom, is based on child human trafficking. And so the guy that this movie is about, he's been on a couple interviews where he says that war causes children to be abandoned from their families due to collateral damage or tragedy. So how, which in turn these children are forced into being a part of human trafficking of children. And so my question regarding this was, is this why the Democrats are usually the party that starts wars? They're always wanting to start a war or wage war against another country. Ukraine and Russia are engaged in that, and as we speak. And why do you think they are waging war right now? For what reasons? But as what my question was. But I think this is also the Democrats, trying to I don't know, mask the fact that a lot of human or whether it's regular, adults or just humans in general, or child trafficking, it's a lot of the, I guess, the contraband, I should say, just because that's what they become, is due to war, because people are abandoned and they have to leave their homes, or children are left without families and parents. So I wanted to kind of touch on that and see what your thoughts are on why you think Ukraine and Russia are fighting, and what that's all about.
Yeah, that's a good question. This is the heaviest question of all, because, so I don't really care about much these days, but, when it comes to like kids and animals, those are the two most innocent things in the world. And it's the two things that really choke me up the most. I hate animal cruelty. I hate that this world is so dark that, there is such a thing as human trafficking, and a lot of kids are involved. It's a really disturbing topic, and it definitely lends light as to why things are happening now, why this war is happening. But before I touch on that, I'm going to yield to a disturbing fact that not a lot of people know, is in America, the city, I don't know if this reigns true for 2023, but at least like the last 5 to 8 years, the city that where most kids go missing in, to take a guess.
Ukraine or Colombia?
No, in America.
Oh, in America. New York or California?
You're close. Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the capital of our nation is where most kids go missing. So either that's just a coincidence, and DC is a big area, or there's something darker under the surface going on with human trafficking, because that's not a coincidence. And definitely wars, human trafficking happens. A lot of human trafficking happened in Haiti. The Clintons were even caught. Hillary was caught with trying to smuggle kids in after the Haiti hurricane. When they ran a foundation, they were sneaking kids in. Africa, this happens. Ukraine, there's tons of that going on. And I think that's really amazing that they finally made a movie on this and releasing it to the public to wake them up, because when I first got into this is when the whole Pizzagate thing came out, and it was laughed at as like ridiculous conspiracy. But then there was a select amount of people who basically I think it first came out right before or right after QAnon dropped.
Mhm.
And the whole Comet Pizza thing came up. And I don't know if you saw this, but I think I saved the documentaries because I knew they were going to deplatformed off of YouTube because they were so good and so dark and what the content they were covering. There was this researcher named Matthew Buddha, and he basically went down the rabbit hole on child trafficking. The stuff he uncovered was truly disturbing about the people it's connected to. There could be a lot of coincidences, but that one guy, I don't know if you remember him, he came out in Hollywood. His name was Cappy. Do you remember that guy?
No, I don't.
So, Cappy was a Hollywood actor who was in some pretty high-end movies, and out of nowhere, Hollywood tried to brush it off as he's just going crazy, or he just has mental problems,
Well,
which
yeah,
he
they say
might
that
have had.
about Mel all the time. Mel Gibson's always saying that. Like, they're
Yeah,
always saying
Mel
about
was the
him.
first one to say this. That was back in like the 90s, I think he was saying, or early
Mhm.
2000s, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "You're a whack job," and long and behold, he was telling the truth the whole time.
Yeah.
Cappy was this guy with like long curly hair. He was kind of a comedian type actor. And out of nowhere, he just came out to the public on Twitter and everything. And he's like, all of Hollywood is pedophiles. They're weirdos. And he literally just started dropping names too. And I couldn't
Oh,
believe
really?
the names he was saying. He was like, straight up, he's like, Seth Green is, all this and that. He even said Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I think Tom Hanks is also on the flight logs to Epstein Island. So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
uh-huh.
He dropped a ton of names, and then out of nowhere, this Cappy guy, supposedly just out in the middle of nowhere, on a highway in, like, I don't remember where it was, Vegas, Texas, Arizona. He just jumped off a overpass onto the highway.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
He committed suicide?
Well,
Supposedly?
everybody, we know that he was murdered. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll send you this stuff. He was one of the
Okay.
first guys after Pizzagate dropped that came out
Mm-hmm.
and started talking about this stuff. And yeah, he ended up dead. So that's that. And then you had that whole tobacco with Comet Pizza. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the Pizzagate stuff, and then
Yeah.
Obama was known to order lots of pizza.
Yeah. Did you ever read those emails with his name on it?
Yeah, I did. I read some of those, yeah.
How weird was that?
That is quite telling, I think, of, well, I don't know if you know this, but it's a conspiracy, which I understand, but
Mm-hmm.
the Obamas, they're two little girls, right? I think were groomed and staged to be
I heard about
act as
that.
their daughters, because I don't think that they are their actual daughters. I don't think they are in any way related to them.
Right.
So I kind of believe this because they look nothing like them whatsoever. Like, nothing. I mean, in my opinion, but someone else might feel otherwise. But if you
Yeah.
really look at them and you look at them closely and compare them to Michelle and Barack, they look nothing like them.
Nothing, right?
Uh-uh.
There's a really weird video of Michelle Obama
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of zoomed in because you can tell the person taking it was kind of far away, but they zoom in where you could see stuff really well.
Yeah.
And she's coming out of a door into an SUV with a Secret Service, and literally, like, you know how like a football player would run down like a set of stairs and grabbing their cup and like pulling up on their jockstrap?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly like how she's doing. Like, she has like a man's dick. She's grabbing it like that and like moving it.
Good grief.
You can like, there's video of this like all over the internet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, geez, like, I don't know any women that do that really. So there's a conspiracy out there that she's actually a tranny.
Well, someone else also, they interviewed her. She used to be a really famous talk show host.
Yeah, what was her name? Joan something?
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but she was murdered 2 days after she she told everybody that,
Yeah.
well, let's everybody just calm down because we know Michelle's a tranny. And I
remember
just
that.
started dying laughing, and like a week or so, or a few days later, she
Yep.
ended up dead. So I'm just like, oh, we better not talk about that, I guess. So
I remember that. She went
Yeah.
under for surgery and just miraculously she died under surgery.
yeah,
Oh,
like
coincidence.
I'm pretty sure she didn't die under surgery, but
Right.
she had heavy what do you call it, plastic surgery a lot. So
Right.
Joan Rivers, that's who it was, right? Joan Rivers? Yeah. Okay, so yeah. She basically stated like, "Oh, we've had gay people in the White House, so let's everybody calm down because we all
Yeah.
know Michelle's a tranny." And everybody went, "What?" And then
Yeah.
the telereporter was like, "Can you say that again, please?"
Can you say that again one more time?
All right.
Yeah. I remember that. That was hilarious.
Oh
I was
my
like,
God.
holy cow.
Yeah, and then on the Ellen show, someone zoomed in on her on the Ellen show,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like you can see something hanging and
Yeah.
hitting against her slacks that she was wearing at the time.
I remember
I
seeing
mean-
that too.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, if she is a tranny, then there's no way they could have had two daughters. Those
No.
two little girls were probably from another family
Yeah.
and were groomed and
Right.
told to act as if they were the daughters of the Obamas. So
Yeah. I've heard of that too. I mean,
Yeah.
at this point, everything's so nuts. I don't doubt it at this point.
yeah.
Yeah. And,
But-
True.
Getting back to the Sound of Freedom, did you know that it's number 3 at the box office right now? It's making more money
Wow.
than the Indiana Jones number 5 right now.
amazing. I didn't know that.
It's crazy, yeah. So it's making and there's a lot of liberals out there that want to shoot it down. Of course,
Mhm.
obviously you probably heard that they just they're trying to downplay this movie a whole lot by
Mhm.
saying no one is going to see it. They're just
Huh.
buying a ticket and not showing up. A lot of people are saying that this is like a pay it forward, like people are just buying a ticket but not going to the movie, but which I think is a bunch of BS. But
Mhm.
but anyway, it's making a lot of money and it's doing pretty decently compared to other box office stuff like Indiana Jones, and it's actually beating out Mission Impossible right now, the new Mission
Wow.
Impossible that came out. So
That's incredible news.
sorry, I didn't mean to like
No.
change subject right away. But
Totally. Yeah, tell me
it's
more.
actually
about it.
doing pretty decent. And
That's amazing.
I think I might wait for it to come out on video or stream. Hopefully, it comes out on stream because
Mhm.
Angel Studio, they actually stream the Chosen series for free. So I'm hoping maybe I can either see it for free
Mhm.
there's a streaming method or at least rent it from them or something
Mhm.
on their app. They do have an app you can download on your TV if you're interested in seeing the Chosen series. It's called Angel Studios or something like that. So, but
Nice.
I want to wait because a lot of people are kind of waiting till it comes out on video because they don't want to be like seen in a theater watching the movie for
Hmm.
fear that they may get like ridiculed for going to go see this movie,
Wow.
which I wouldn't doubt. You know, if a bunch of liberals were
Mhm.
protesting outside a theater or something, you know, I could see that happening. But
Yeah.
also, I don't know. Do you remember the Batman movie with it was the first one with Bane? I think it
Mhm.
was like the third Batman that came out, and then there was a big mass shooting inside
Oh,
the theater.
yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. That's at Colorado.
Yeah, it was in Colorado. So I would be scared to go see that movie
Oh,
and then
yeah.
be scared that someone's going to come in there with like a
True.
really freaked out far left
Wacko.
liberal coming in there with a gun and started like
Yeah.
mowing everybody down. But
That's scary. Yeah, man.
yeah, it is. It is scary. So that's kind of why I'd rather just kind of wait
Good
till
idea.
in the comfort of my own home and
Yeah.
watch it there. But,
That's better. I totally
But
agree.
yeah, so
Yeah, it's a touchy subject, and I don't know if child trafficking is going on or human trafficking. I'm sure it is with, remnants and byproduct of the war going on over
Oh,
in the East
yeah.
now.
I'm sure it
And,
is in
you know, there-
Ukraine. where
Tons of
kids are
that was
being
going on
abandoned.
already before
Yeah.
the war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one thing that's really disturbing. I think the Trump administration, they were doing really good. They were cracking down. They made huge cases and
Yeah, Trump.
human trafficking.
Yeah, Trump signed a
Yeah.
couple of executive orders, didn't he, for human trafficking that
Yeah.
paved the way for a lot of different things to
You're right.
happen for that.
Yeah, he did. He made some new marks in our system, and now like the Biden administration is trying to cover it up.
Yeah, they're trying to get rid of all his executive orders. I mean, I think Biden came in and
Yeah.
just decided, let's just kill all of Trump's executive orders because
Mhm.
we got to get rid of them. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. It's just the amount of damage they've done in a few years.
Oh
is-
yeah, he's done so
crazy.
much damage in the first year than he did
Mhm.
in his whole term. I mean, it was just like
Yeah, it's a loony show now.
yeah, it's definitely a
Um,
clown show or a shit show, as you
A
like
shit
to say,
show,
right?
clown show. I hope to see that film. Yeah, after going down that rabbit hole with Cappy and the whole Pizzagate thing and watching the Mouthy Buddha documentaries, and it was really dark, and I had to take a step back from it because I was like, man, this is. I mean, I knew people were evil, but how?
What's
How
the
can you-
documentary name again?
It's I forget the term of it. I'll send it to you.
Okay,
But the creator, he has channel. I don't know if his channel's still on YouTube. It might still be there. He's called Mouthy Buddha.
Mouthy
does-
Buddha. Okay.
Yeah, really good documentaries, and he made 2 on Pizzagate.
Oh,
They're
wow.
probably some of the best I've ever seen.
Okay.
And he's actually a researcher himself, so he goes down the rabbit hole himself as he documents the whole thing. And I got into that, and I was like, man, I don't know how much more of this I could take. This is pretty dark stuff.
Yeah.
So I took a step back from it. Ever since then, I knew Mel Gibson was making that film, but I wasn't really following the whole thing.
Well, he's not directing it. I'm wondering if he's like more of a producer or promoter of
Mhm.
it,
Okay.
because he does promote the hell out of this movie.
Right.
And he's worked, the guy that plays this guy, I think he's Special Forces guy.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that plays him also was in Mel Gibson's movie that he directed called Passion Christ.
I remember
And he
that.
played
Yeah.
Jesus, so he's the guy that played Jesus in his Passion Christ movie.
Ah,
He's a really good actor. I really like him. And he's also, anytime that he comes onto a movie, he actually really becomes really involved in the character that he plays, because he was a really good in the Passion Christ as Jesus. I thought he was really good. So,
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was good, man. It's good that movies like this are getting the limelight, because this stuff has been hidden for so long. Can you imagine how long this has been going on for? Like hundreds
yeah.
of years, probably.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
You know, and it's just really sad. And it's people like this were trying to talk about it. I remember like when Corey Feldman first came out about this, and people were like, "What are you talking about? Like, really?
Well,
like,
yeah, Corey Feldman
Yeah.
and then Corey Haim, he actually killed
Yeah.
himself because of this. So that's why
Yeah.
Corey Feldman was so pissed off about it.
yeah, I remember.
Because they were both really good friends all through their careers, I believe, till Corey Haim killed himself.
Very sad.
Yeah, that's why Corey Feldman was. I think Corey Feldman he actually did a documentary on his Hollywood career, and he broadcasted it through a stream. And you paid to see the stream, but it was about his life and what, like all the molestation he went through, and he talked about it. I think it was more of an interview with him than it was like a documentary, but that was a couple of years ago, I believe, and you could pay to watch it. I think it was like $5 or $10, or it wasn't much,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it was basically like an interview of his Hollywood career. So he doesn't have much of a Hollywood career anymore. I think he tried to go through the music industry, and I don't think he really made it very well. So he's more like a podcaster now, I think.
Mhm.
He goes around and gets interviewed by a bunch of different podcasters and stuff like that now. So
That's good that he's doing something.
yeah, but
Yeah, man. It's a tough subject, and
yeah, it is
it's
very
devastated
tough.
people. And I can't imagine what these kids are going through, and I'm sure it's happening over in Ukraine. Who knows where some of those orphans are going?
Yeah. Speaking
And,
of kids, we see a lot of kids getting, our society is currently shoving
Mhm.
race inequality and gender
Mhm.
inequality, as well as like the LGBTQ plus, or what, alphabet mafia, whatever the fuck they want to call themselves, and then in our this gets getting shoved in our faces in everyday
Mhm.
events, such as politics, TV, any kind of media, whether it's social media or on TV or what have you. What do you think? What do you think the purpose of being told this and having this constantly being thrown in our face or shoved in our face? Why do you think this is going on, and why is it especially being done to our kids now in America? Why do you think it's being done to them?
Yeah, this is a really good point that you were bringing up. I remember, and one term I wanted to talk about today and highlight that not a lot of viewers might know about, and it's a phenomenon actually, and there's a term for it. It's called the Overton window, and basically, it's kind of like the slow evolution of societal values and norms change out of nowhere, and you can feel it, see it happening, but you can't like quite put your finger on it. It was basically so the Overton window. It was kind of developed in the mid '90s by a guy named Joseph P. Overton. He was the senior vice president at the Mackinac Center, I think that's how you say it, for public policy, until he died in 2003. And it's kind of like how you can shift, lie, and distort the public. I'll link this, in our show and stuff, but you guys, or your viewers, can go read about it. And it's kind of like a slow hypnosis of the public morale, and it's basically what becomes more acceptable in the window of society every few years. And conservatives were kind of like the normal people who were normal in like the 90s and mid 2000s, when you just went about your day and you're like, yeah, this is normal. And then we stayed normal, and then as the 2000s started progressing more and more, you suddenly notice things starting to get a little crazier, and you're like, do you notice this too? Like, things are getting weird. Like, why isn't anybody bringing this up? And now out of nowhere, you see like, now the Overton window has gotten even more progressive and more insane. Like, now you see trans athletes just dominating women in sports. Like, that's an example of the Overton window.
I think it's really, I can't stand that. I don't know why trannies want to be in, or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
What do they go by? They like to, like, these are men who want to transition to a woman, or feel that they are expressly a woman in their sexuality, and so then they want to go get involved in women's sports, which to me is just the most idiotic fucking thing I've ever heard of, because we know by physical fact that a man's upper body is stronger than a woman. So if you put a man in a woman's sport, like let's say, who's the best basketball player in the world, would you say right now?
I would say Stephen Curry, right?
Stephen Curry. Well, you can make an argument for LeBron James,
right?
James Harden. All these guys, right? You put one of them in the WNBA.
Oh man,
they go from making 60 points a game to 152 or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be fucking ridiculous. But
wow.
And then you have this. What's that guy's name that is swimming? And he's in the women's swimming team or whatever.
Yeah. I heard about that person.
I don't know, but
I don't remember their name. But it was pushed on the female athletes.
Yeah,
they were told if they spoke out about it, they'd lose their scholarships, their careers.
Right, and he's in there changing with them, getting ready for the events, and they're just having to change in the same locker room with this guy. How would you feel if, let's say, like, 'cause, 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 my daughter or your niece goes and starts playing soccer in high school, and then this
Yeah.
high school boy decides that he expresses himself as a female or sees himself as a female, and so goes and changes in the same locker room as these girls. I mean, you'd pull your kid out of school, right? I mean,
I know.
that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff is ridiculous. It's gotten way out of hand. It needs to stop. If these guys, these are, to me, these are men who have failed as an athlete in the men's division, and they just want some reason to go compete with women so they can be gold medalists or win their particular event or whatever they're good at or think they're good at. But I think it's a cop out. I really do. I think it's a total cop out.
Yeah. It feels off, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah, it's crazy.
it's just madness.
Yeah.
You're on the money. It's like that's a perfect example of just complete lunacy that we can see,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the Overton window taking on an exasperated form and literally distorting the fabric of our society. And we can still see normal, but like the people that follow the psyops on the news, they're the ones that get taken for the ride and the drift of the Overton window, and it just pulls them more and more to what's acceptable in society, and they just
Right.
go along with the program. And like we're over here like, yo, like that's a little crazy. How can you think that or follow that? Like that's obviously wrong morally. Like, but the Overton window, that's the phenomenon, and the people who support progressive stuff like that, they can't conceptualize something like the Overton window. But somebody who can step back from it, like a conservative or
Yeah.
somebody who actually researches history or has a history major or looks at what happens in history when certain events happen and how things byproducts form and the way disasters happen or totalitarian regimes come about. It's by stuff like this happening, like the Overton window. And yeah, that's happening to us right now. And I always knew there was something about it, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, what the terminology is to use of what's happening to us. And that's exactly what it is happening to us. It's called the Overton window. And essentially, it's an exasperated form of communism. I know I've talked about communism on the show before, but
What's the term again? Can you say it again?
sure, I'll spell it out for you guys. It's Overton, like the word over, Overton
Mhm.
window. It was created by Joseph P. Overton. And it came around in the mid-90s. And yeah, they're like things that are basically put to instill this into our society, like think tanks. One of them I can think, there was one of them in general that was one of the biggest of our nation that gets funded. I can't remember which institution it is, but they get an insane amount of funding from our federal government, and they're one of the think tanks that think of all this stuff. And then you have globalists like George Soros who will then push it and fund it, and basically destabilize nations. And yeah, it's kind of it's just a recipe for disaster, and that's kind of what's happening to us by influence of money and communism. And it breeds things like the Overton window, and we're just basically all just getting taken for a ride. I know the USA is a big country, and there's a lot of beliefs, and we have the freedom of speech and the right to defend ourselves. But there's a lot of people who don't want that for us, and they know that we're kind of the last of the dying breed to tackle. That's kind of hard. I'd say
a number of freedoms that
Yeah.
other countries don't have.
Right. So many.
But I feel that not only the Democratic Party, but some Republicans that are rhinos, I guess. They kind of go both ways or whatever you call it, but they just want to destroy that. I don't understand why, because Well, we're still a young country, believe it or not. We're well over 200 years old, but there's other countries that are well over that, like
Yeah.
thousands of years old. But we're still young. So, but there's this part of me that really fears that once you reach a certain point in a country, and then there's other people that are trying to overthrow democracy or freedom, it's hard to kind of gain control back. Because I mean, Rome is well over thousands of years old before it fell, but when Rome fell, it was from the inside. So, which is starting to happen now here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the scariest part about what's happening right now, is everything is falling apart from the inside out. And I think that's telling in a lot of other different ways for the other countries or other empires that have fell themselves, is because it happened the exact same way. So I think that, I don't know, it's just really scary to believe that that's actually what's really happening.
Yeah, man. That's exactly what's happening. And like, you can see it, I can see it. It's exactly like Rome and what happened in Russia, what happened in China.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening to us now. It's from within. Like, we can't be conquered from the outside, because, we're surrounded by thousands of miles of water. We have the strongest military in the world, the strongest economy. So how do you defeat that? You got to kill it from within, like a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
And yeah, man,
And
it's a scary time to be alive.
yeah, and one of the other things that, not just like sexuality and gender and things like that going on right now, but there's also regards to like male masculinity. Like they're trying to like demasculine men. I mean, I don't understand. There's no other way to say it, because that's actually what they're doing. They're trying to. We're being hated against for being able to do things that are, in a masculine way, like having, being able to be a man. What is it to be a man? Well, and then there's that documentary on what is it to be a woman. Well, I mean, I think that the men are kind of being thrown aside, and everything's about. You don't see women trying to be a man as much as you see a man trying to be a woman. That's what really is really scary, because I feel men are being kind of told that they have to act a certain way now. They can't be that man that you depict out of a caveman cartoon or something. Like, you can't. To me, that's actually like, like that's what a man is. Like they provide. They are the breadwinners. Like, this is just roles that, from when I was raised, this is how a man should be. Like, they are the head of the household. They are the people that provide money-wise and financial, as well as, have letting their family have certain things like a roof over their head, all the things that a man should provide for their family, as well as help raise the kids as best they can and all these things, and teach kids, especially men are supposed to be teaching their sons how to do certain things that a man does, because they're going to be a man someday. So these are all different things that I'm guessing you were also raised this way, where a man has a certain role. Well, these roles are being destroyed by our current society right now, which is really scary. So I wanted to kind of get your take on that. Like, in the 80s and 90s especially, there was, like, I don't know, when I was growing up, man, there was definitely a difference between a man and a woman. Like, a woman has their roles and a man has their roles, but now it's like, you can't, as a man, you can't do certain things now. It's not seen as, it's frowned upon now. It's not seen as a man being just a man. It's seen as a man getting out of hand or having anger management problems, or a man doesn't show feeling enough, so they gotta, start sharing their feelings with everybody, and like men are really they don't share their feelings a lot of the time because they're told to suck it up, which is how I was raised, right? You don't show your feelings. You don't show your kids when you're crying, because that's just not the norm. You go, and if you got to cry, you go behind closed doors, do your thing, and then you suck it up and walk back out and then face the world, right? I mean, that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
And all that's being shit upon, I think, in a lot of different ways. And I don't know if you saw the Tucker Carlson interview with Andrew Tate. A lot of that gender roles he talks about, and he talks about the reason why it's being crapped upon. And I forget the reason that he gave, but a lot of it is just because of the media is trying to push all these different things. And with the gender roles and all this, and he says it's just a bunch of crap. And I kind of wanted to get your take on it. What do you feel? Why is the definition of a man and masculinity being crapped on or hated against, and all these things in our society right now?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think the ultimate goal is to just destroy the nuclear family, because once you destroy the nuclear family, you can then control people's minds better, because if there's no male figure in the house, you destroy the nuclear family. And broken homes, people from broken homes, not always in all the cases, but they're easier to manipulate in terms of getting them sucked into fear-based society and control people. I mean, we're all easy to control somewhat, but their goal is to definitely break down the nuclear family for the white people. I know they've done it to the black basically community pretty well. Sadly, not a lot of that culture has, father figures in the homes, and you have crime-ridden streets in every liberal city. And I really think that a lot of this stuff boils down to culture, and what they're trying to do now is destroy the conservative culture, because that will ultimately destroy the nuclear family and the middle class. And the middle class is what runs the U.S. and basically also what runs the entire country, because without USA, I mean, it's a whole different ball game. So, I mean, there's 350 million of us, and at least over half of those, 3/4, is all white middle class families. And when you destroy that, you can basically control the world more. The Overton window will take control of people's minds. You can then subject them to any form of control you want. Give them more vaccines, more psyop propaganda on the news. Let them relinquish all their civil liberties. I hate to say this, but possibly in our lifetime, we're going to see the at least limitations and restrictions of free speech. It's already happening. Cancel culture is already here. That is the limitation of free speech. And cancel culture, where I've discussed before on one of these shows, is basically most of it. I mean, it did happen earlier with Copernicus and Jesus Christ. That was all cancel culture, but cancel culture at a broader, huge societal level really happened to its own citizens in communist Soviet Union, and it started in 1917 with the overthrow coup d'etat of the government. It wasn't a revolution like people were told in the history books. It was really a coup d'etat. So all this stuff is coming from communism, and it's recycled communism coming into our country. So liberalism doesn't know that they're being controlled by communism. They're like a deer in headlights. They just do whatever they say because orange man bad, white Republicans, extremists bad. All those guys are bad.
Yeah, the orange man bad mentality, like
exactly. So whatever, anything goes except for that, Yeah. And it's basically they don't realize that they're destroying the nuclear family at the same time, somewhat, and they're giving these new generations a strong distortion of reality. I mean, some of this generation is just they're just being set up for disaster. They don't really know what the real world is like, and yeah. It's just a really our country's heading for a train. It's already
I mean, it's definitely
At a
being
train
groomed in
wreck?
the schools that they should
Yeah.
act a certain way. So, I mean,
right.
a lot of, well, because I've been a teacher, so it's definitely being groomed by, even because I was a teacher at elementary school, and it was being groomed during library, because
Wow.
library teacher was having a whole bunch of these, basically the women's month or whatever. She was having all these pictures of women on the wall in the library, and one of them was AOC, and I nearly about lost my fucking mind. So
Oh, man.
it's like, I took a picture of it and sent it to my mom, and right before, I think it was 2 months before she passed, but I sent it to her, and she just about went off. She called me and says, "I can't believe they have a picture of her, blah 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 blah." It was nothing but pictures of Democrats, as well as like particular certain people that are far left people, even though they weren't in politics, but these are people that are known to be far left. But so it's just shocking, because certain people are just so brainwashed. All they ever know is to be a liberal. I mean, it's really, when you, like now, if I go to Walgreens or CVS, or if I go to HEB, which is, a lot of people don't know what HEB is because it's a Texas thing, but it's a grocery store, kind of like a Safeway or Kroger or some shit like that. So if you go to HEB here in Texas, it's like going to your local grocery store, and I guarantee you, I see maybe on average about 3 or 4 people that are still wearing a fucking mask in a grocery store.
Wow.
And I can tell you that those people wearing a mask are, one, still scared they're going to get COVID, and two, are liberal, and you can tell it from a mile away that they're liberal because they're wearing a mask. So, I mean, our kids are definitely getting groomed, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. And it starts in the schools, even at the elementary level. So it's really scary.
Very scary, bro.
But yeah, this next election, I wanted to kind of get an idea what you think about this next election. Like, who do you think is going to be the head for the GOP Republican Party for the 2024 election? And do you think Trump will be one of the big time forerunners for the GOP or Republican Party? And also, the other thing I wanted to kind of cover was, do you ever think the Democratic Party, the Dems that have been in office, are going to ever get prosecuted for their crimes? Because they've done way more worse than what Trump's. You always talk to a liberal and they're like, well, the Bidens aren't as bad as or as corrupted as Trump was. Like, what? Like, they feel that Trump was more corrupted than Biden. And of course, we know by factual information that Biden and the Clintons are way more corrupted than Trump ever was or ever will be, to be in my opinion. So I kind of want to get an idea of like what makes these people think that way. Like, are they that brainwashed, or are they just that groomed through being raised a certain way? I mean, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think the 2024, I think that since the January 6th events, that people have kind of quietly gone under the covers and not really vocally, basically, outspoken about who they're supporting and stuff. But we all know that they're definitely supporting Trump, but they're not as vocal about it. They're just kind of waiting for that moment of election day again, and they're definitely going to vote for Trump. I think DeSantis has a strong run at the GOP for primarily people who are just tired of the lunacy that's in the bipartisan news, and they just want normalcy to be back in the country again, so they're just going to vote for anybody other than Biden or Trump. So for the GOP, I guess that's DeSantis, and then they're not running anybody other than Biden for the DNC. So I guess it would be, that's You know, if let's just say like all the Trump supporters, their votes didn't get counted because it was rigged, right?
Right.
And say they rigged the election so they would put DeSantis against Biden. That, you know, it's another possible easy win for Biden because they're just going to rig the election.
Yeah, that's my feeling, is that they're just going to rig the whole thing again, and then what's the point of? To me, if they rig it, and then there's previous evidence that they did rig the 2020 election, so the 2024 election is going to come up, and if Biden is either reelected or another Democrat becomes president, I think there's going to be a lot of speculation on who's really pulling the strings, do the people of America really hold the power like they used to? Because, like, if it's being rigged, then they don't. I mean, it's like if another Democrat's just going to be president, then we know that it's rigged. I mean, there's no doubt about it, because it's insane. This country has been going down the shithole because we have inflation skyrocketed, groceries, the prices at the grocery store have gone up tenfold. Mortgages and all that. The federal government is even loans and shit have gone up by 10 and 18%, which people can't afford a fucking house anymore. I mean, something's got to give at some point, don't you think?
Yeah, man, you're feeling it too. I think that pretty much everything we've seen in our country is basically all orchestrated. I think that the whole COVID thing was orchestrated. I'm not going to go ahead and say 9/11 was, but I think parts of it was, at least. You know, I think that there were real hijackers and stuff, but I think there was a cover-up going on of all. There's something called the missing trillions, where basically Donald Rumsfeld got on TV a week or two before 9/11 actually happened, and he said on C-SPAN Live, he's like, we can't account for 2.3 trillion of your tax dollars. And the spot where one of the planes hit in the Pentagon was the spot where those files were supposed to be held on the missing trillions. So I think.
What do you mean missing trillions? What does that mean?
So basically, there was a fiscal year for our military budget spending in 2000, or I think 99, and they're supposed to account for where our tax money goes, and there was a part of that whole fiscal year where basically $2.3 trillion couldn't be tracked internally in the government.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, still to this day, they can't find it. And when I think of 9/11, I think of that as a cover-up, and that for the start of our wars to distract people away from that, of where your trillions of dollars even 20 years ago was going. So I think everything since then, or even probably since the assassination of JFK, everything in our country has been orchestrated at a level well above secrecy of any of us that are supposed to know about it.
Yeah, I definitely think Johnson, which was vice president to JFK, I definitely think he had a hard-on for JFK. I definitely think he was part of that assassination.
Yeah, good point. I think one of them was too.
Because he wanted that power, definitely.
He wanted it. It was so... The corruption has been going on for so long, and I think that the deep state, they've been doing it for so long that they hold power, and all these institutions, judicial, the DOJ, they're basically infused everywhere, the world banking system, and they just control us like peasants now. Yeah. And when I think of somebody who tried to go against the establishment for one time because maybe he was in it for a little bit and he saw what was going on and decided he didn't want to be a part of it anymore, was Donald Trump. And when he tried to go against the establishment, they basically put a target on his back, and everything. The day before he was running for president, he was just, nobody really talked about him much, and he wasn't hated. But the second he ran as a Republican, he got a target on his back, and the whole legacy media went against him. And that's one I think of when you ask about are any of these people ever going to get prosecuted. Unfortunately, I'm a pessimist where I say no, not many, because the media is all in conjunction, works behind the shadows with the Democratic Party, Hollywood, basically the people who run this world, and they don't want to have an outsider mess up that status quo. So anybody who's in on it, like the Bidens or the Clintons, who else may be in it? People who run the Vatican. It goes deep, really, really deep and dark and scary. They don't want the status quo to be messed up. These are the same people that are probably hanging with the Epsteins and all this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's why they really want to get him convicted of all these tax stuff, as well as hush money he was going to give to some porn star, and now it's becoming, they're tacking on 3 or 4 extra charges on top of what they've already charged him with. But I think the biggest scare of him running again would be, like, he doesn't have a reason to go a certain way. He's going to go his way and only his way, because he can't be bought out. He's already made his money. He's still making money. I also feel that, like, so his last term, he thought certain people were on his side, and then after he left, he realized, oh, these people went against me so that I wouldn't get in office again. So now he's pissed, and now he's already said this in some of his rallies, that if he gets back in office, these people are gone immediately.
Right.
And he's going to get all these prosecutors and special, what do you call them, committees or whatever, to get these people out of there. Like, he wants these people out of there. They're gone once I get in office. And I think and he's not only pissed off Democrats, but he's also pissed off Republicans by saying that, because some of these Republicans are rhinos, and they are ones that went against him. And he's basically said they're fired. Like, as soon as I get in there, they're fired. They're gone. And I'm going to revamp the DOJ, and I'm going to redo the CIA. I'm going to redo the FBI, because it's all part of the swamp. It's all the swamp. So anything that's the swamp is going to be gone when I become president. So I think a lot of these guys are becoming so scared. And I think another reason why they're scared, on top of all that he's already said, is because he has dirt on every one of these motherfuckers that he's ready to release as soon as he gets in office. He could probably do it now, but I think he's waiting for a certain moment before he releases all this info. I think that is, obviously what he's being charged for is the same shit that they found on Biden, but Biden's not being charged for it. They found a whole bunch of secret documents in his garage, and in Biden's garage, and he's not being prosecuted for having secret documentation. Only Trump is. So they're very scared of him for some other reason, like maybe we don't even know about. You know what I mean? Like, not only is he going to release some shit, but he's got so much tea or dirt or whatever it is on these people that he's ready to unleash, like the Kraken, on these people when he becomes in office, or he's waiting for that right moment to do that. But they've been saying that since 2020 when he ran for re-election, and he hasn't done anything yet. So that's where I'm like, well, do it already. You know what I mean? Like, if you have stuff on people, just release it already. You should have done it a long time ago, in my opinion.
Yeah. Right.
But I don't know, man.
That's well said. It's the establishment is afraid of him because he just gained traction and a following like no other president that's ever come along before. That's why they're afraid of him.
They're really scared of him.
Yeah. And they're trying to take him out now. I don't know. Honestly, I haven't really been following a lot of it, but I don't know what's actually going to
Well,
happen, but
they raided Mar-a-Lago because he had all the secret documentation that they have said on the media that he wasn't supposed to have. But all the presidents have the right to certain documentation, according to the Presidential Documentation Act or whatever it is. So if they're accusing him of having all this secret information, then why wasn't Biden prosecuted with this shit? Because he also had shit in his garage.
exactly.
So it's almost like whatever the Democratic Party is getting in trouble for, they want to prosecute Trump for doing that. You ever notice
Yeah.
that? Like whatever Democratic Party gets in trouble for, they automatically say, "Oh, well, no, Trump did all that," and so
Yeah, I
that's
think
what
the
they're trying to
Russian
get
collusion thing.
him involved with, or him prosecuted for, or convicted of,
Amazing.
which is
It's like-
just a bunch of crap. I mean, there's this double standard that people are seeing. The American people are seeing the double standard. It's already there. People are seeing it left and right.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't know if they're even trying to hide it anymore. You know, like, and they, I don't know if you ever watched the Karine Jean-Pierre, where the fuck her name is, I don't know, the press secretary. She's horrible. McEnany was much better than this bitch. I don't know, but like she gets up there and she just, how do you, for your job, if all you got to do is stand in front of a bunch of reporters and lie your fucking ass off, how do you do that? I don't understand that. Like, I don't know how she does that. I'd be sick to my stomach if I had to lie every day to people. I mean,
Right.
she literally, or she'll say, I'll have to circle back with that question. I'll have to circle back with that question. And the other thing that she says is like, oh, I can't comment on that right now.
Right.
Oh, really? And then McEnany, when
she
she
can't
was
do
up
her
there,
job.
man, she had a response for everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's terrible.
I don't,
It's a clown show.
I don't get it. It's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's just like I'm preparing for basically the worst, or have been, of what is becoming our country.
Yeah,
And,
I'm at a loss because if 2024, I would be really surprised if they want to reelect Biden, because he has kind of put the Democratic Party on a hold right now because of all. The man can't even walk to the podium by himself. Has to be escorted. He can't even talk in normal sentences anymore. He's old. He's like 80-something years old now. How old is he?
oh yeah, he's up there. He's like 84 or something.
Something like that, right? He's the oldest president in American history, right? So I would be very surprised if the Democratic Party decided to put him up as their leader and for re-election. Because if I were them, I would put up Michelle, but apparently Michelle has done something really dumb. I don't know if you heard this as well, but Obama's had a chef, like a private chef or something like that, and this guy drowned on their property
Oh, I heard about
on a
that.
boarding, some sort of paddleboard accident or something.
Yeah.
But get this. So I was watching Fox News, and Fox News had a segment where the Clintons' private chef also died in a drowning accident.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence that, right?
Yeah.
Like, and also the Obamas had lied first about where they were when this guy died. So I think there's speculation about where their whereabouts were, whether they were on the property at the time, which apparently they were because they backtracked and said that they were. They might have not been at the house, but they were on Martha's Vineyard Island when this happened. This guy was a good swimmer. They have pictures of him learning how to swim in an Olympic pool, doing laps. Why wasn't he wearing a vest if there was question of whether he, his ability to swim, because he did take lessons, and it shows video of him doing that on his Instagram or Twitter page or whatever. So I think there's a lot of speculation on the timing of this, and where it happened and all the things that just make it really suspicious, I guess. But yeah, it's really weird. But I don't know, man. I'm really disheartened because of how Trump is being treated. He's not even president anymore, and this guy is being bombarded with all the things. And
Oh yeah.
we have a president that doesn't even know what day it is. And we are the laughing stock of the world right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if some other country tries to invade Taiwan, or or Ukraine and Russia decide to attack certain other U.S. military bases that are in other countries, just to fuck with Biden. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just because that's how he's just showing himself to be very weak right now, and I don't think that's what we need right now.
Yeah. It's definitely a dent in our armor.
But yeah, we are definitely not. Did you? So there was a poll. I just want to put this out there. There was a poll recently on what Americans think about the direction of our country and if they thought it's going in the right direction or the wrong direction. 70 and change percent of the Americans who feel that our country is not going in the right direction.
Whoa.
That's a lot of people, dude.
Is that both sides of the political party spectrum?
I think so. Or it's just a bunch of random people that they did this poll on.
That's bad.
Yeah, it's well above 70%. So that's pretty insane.
That's not good.
Yeah.
That's how you know things are really, really bad.
And I think the Democrats need to kind of take a step back and be like, oh shit, we've really fucked up. We probably shouldn't have Biden in there. Because, to be honest, I don't think Biden was elected. I think he was appointed by the Democratic Party. Because there's no way in hell 80,000 votes got him in there. I think there was well over that. I think, Trump got 70-something thousand, and then he got 80-something thousand, which I think is bullshit. But yeah, I don't know, dude. I'm just so disgusted by half the shit that goes on right now. Just because I think that we're just our country is swimming in a pile of shit. I mean, I think that's just what we're doing right now. We're just trying to come up above the water level every now and then to kind of take a breath, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's slowly deteriorating quickly, and it's eating internally, like our American values. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to really stay positive these days about any of that stuff. So I've kind of tuned out some of it, and I just trying to prepare for trying to get away from the craziness of both mentally and physically sometimes.
Yeah. I guess my question to you is like, do you think your vote still counts?
It's a really good question. Honestly, no. In 2023, I don't.
No.
I think it's rigged. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel after the 2020 election, and the evidence I saw of the rigging of the votes coming in for Pennsylvania in the middle of the night and all these other states.
Yeah.
After watching 2,000 Mules.
I still need to see that documentary.
Yeah. It's decent. It definitely shows some video evidence of people stuffing ballots and creepy stuff DNC does, and elections have been rigged all over the world for millennia, but we're supposed to be the beacon of light for the rest of the world to follow.
Yeah.
And when our system is breaking down, it just goes to show you that a lot of darkness is overcoming the world.
Do you think that there's a bunch of groups that get together, have meetings, and then decide, this is going to be our president in 2024? Do you think that's something that's been decided beforehand, and then the election just happens, and then they just decide, You know what I mean? Like this person is picked by elites ahead of time.
Certain years they do, definitely.
Yeah.
I think some years they're like, all right, let them go at it and let's see who wins. But then like other years they're like, all right, this person we're going to be picking, we're going to rig the system. You know, people like, you ever heard of like the Bohemian Grove, or like the Trilateral Commission?
Yeah, yeah.
Or, I think those people get together
Where
and
they worship this big owl statue and it starts talking like Walter Cronkite and shit like that.
You've seen all that, yeah.
Yeah, I think Alex Jones, he claims he has footage, and then they have this huge owl statue, and they do this ritual where it's like a mock ritual of killing a baby or some shit. I don't know, but
yeah, some dark shit out there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I heard that. What is kind of creepy about what nobody really talks about in our country is that stuff like that, like who really runs the world.
Right.
But I do know that when they created the Federal Reserve, there were only like 3 people that opposed it, and the 3 people that opposed it were actually bigwigs that died on the Titanic when they sank.
Oh,
so,
man.
Yeah, as soon as those guys were dead, they just went along through it. And I also watched this documentary about rituals and stuff like that, and they said that the people who signed the Federal Reserve into fruition, they specifically sought out a tribe of Native Americans that lived in like Louisiana or India or Florida somewhere, and they bought a property where these Indians would do blood sacrifice rituals, and they actually built a property house over that burial mound.
Which
and
Luciferian stuff, like I was actually watching a documentary where in DC, the roads that lead to the Capitol, the monument, and the White House, and all the different buildings in Washington DC form a pentagram.
Yeah,
I heard that too.
Seen that. Creepy. How it like, the Freemasonry and all this stuff. That basically what created a foundation. And the people who signed the Federal Reserve document, they signed it on the blood sacrifice mound of where the Indian burial was, and they say that them doing that was actually casting a ritual spell over all of money in America.
Oh man!
So once the commencement of the Federal Reserve happened with that blood ritual, basically that's why our country works the way it does, because they casted a spell over the money in the Federal Reserve, basically the start of our whole monetary system in America.
I didn't know that.
It's kind of dark, but yeah, I feel like that's probably the why things are the way they are, because of the money, and our country's built on capitalism, and it's the most prosperous country that's really ever come along in the history of humanity. And they wanted to make sure they had a hold on it with creating a ritual over the money over it. Yeah, man, there's a lot of weird stuff out there. So I kind of feel like seeing all the corruption that when Trump got into office, we didn't really think about any of this stuff in the 80s or 90s or 70s. We knew corporations were corrupt, but we didn't know our whole education institutions, the government, our basically alphabet agencies were all corrupt. The people who run our money, the military, like everything is corrupt to the core. And like, I don't think we ever cared about or paid attention to any of that until Trump came along. And basically woke us all up. And we're just peasants, So yeah, to answer your question, I unfortunately don't feel like my vote counts, especially if I'm voting for a Republican. They're just gonna change it or rig it or something, And sad to say that, because my grandpa fought against the Nazis. He didn't fight for a country to turn out like this, and it's kind of depressing me, honestly. Every week I think about it. So I don't know. I hope for the best, but at the same time, I'm preparing for the worst. Trying to be a realist, and I hope for a better future for our young generations. But honestly, it's looking really bleak, and we're kind of like the last great hope of this world. I mean, there are still a lot of great places to go in America. Like, there's tons of open land you could buy, and you can live off the grid and be perfectly happy. You can't really do that very well in other nations.
Yeah,
there's
you
people
really
over.
can't.
Yeah, so we still have that. So in a way, I'm still pretty positive. You know, if our government's corrupt, or rigging and elections is corrupt, or academia is all fried and messed up, at least we can raise our families out in the middle of nowhere. It'd be off grid, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
So I still have hope for that. But in terms of like politics and all that stuff, I generally think all of it is really a psyop, and you know, they're definitely controlling mostly liberals' minds and stuff, but they're doing it to us too. You know, they're trying to infuse us with fear-ridden stuff on both sides, and for the most part, I just try to tune it out and try to live life positively. But at the same time, I want to uncover what's going on underneath the surface level. I want to know the truth. I want to go down and see what's underneath the iceberg. And after the whole living these last 8 years of on this earth, of seeing what is happening to our great country, you can't look away to, you know, you have to be like, damn, there's something really deep, dark going on with our country that's not right, you know.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You feel it, I feel it. It's obvious now.
Yeah, that the other side, they can't hide it anymore because it's definitely being seen, and whether they're trying to hide it or not anymore, to be honest, because it's just so vivid and right in front of your eyes right now. So I think that's really hard to be unseen, to be honest, what's going on. But yeah, it's shocking to think that, you know, we're going through a period in time where the deep state is happening, and we're really being controlled by someone's agenda, probably the elite's agenda. Where, but I also think we're making some strides, because with the Bud Light thing and some of the what do you call them? Kind of a protest, but boycotts, really. Because then you have the silent majority that doesn't really go out there like liberals do and just say what's on their mind immediately. The liberals are so quick to, well, this isn't right, blah, 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 you know. The silent majority, they don't do that.
Right.
They do it where it really hurts, and that's with money. Like, you have conservative moms and parents who are like, oh, I don't want my kid to be involved with this, and so they don't go to Target and buy clothes from them anymore. Or they conservative dads who drink beer, well, I'm not going to buy Bud Light anymore, so fuck them, right? So they hit them where it hurts, which is money. So a lot of the conservative families are the ones that make a lot of the make a lot of their money. Like, just they won't buy certain things if it's gonna sway them to be a certain way or go with a certain agenda. And I think that's where we are making strides right now, is where we can kind of, you know, determine what happens with that, you know, by deciding what we're going to use our money on, and for what we need, you know, necessity wise, or, you know, play that game that way.
Exactly.
But I'm also scared with this, you know, apparently our money is going to turn digital now, and so it's going to be more highly more controlled by the government than it usually is, which is going to be really scary. But yeah,
that's scary. Yeah, absolutely, bro. It's headed in a really tough direction, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, we've been on for a good hour and a half.
Nice.
Bro, this was a good episode 6.
Great episode. Great questions, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Well, I think I had a couple more left, but I'll save those for the next episode. And
nice.
Everyone have a good night. Thanks for listening. And another episode in the books for the Dr. Steelhammer Show.
episode 6. Thank you for staying with us, and we hope that you continue to stick with us. And if you have any questions, email us. Feel free to email us. Do you want to plug that email?
Yeah, it's the Dr. Steelhammer Show at proton.me. That's the email. So if y'all have any questions or you want us to talk about a certain subject, just send us the email, and we'll happy to talk about it on the next episode, maybe episode 7.
Absolutely. We'll give you a shout out. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Awesome. Have a great night.
All right.